Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. This is Workday Adaptive Planning, the highlights from Workday DevCon 2023. Today's webinar is part of the Looking Forward with Workday series. It's a series of webinars designed to give you insight into how your organization can do more with Workday. This series will share how we support how you manage your people and your business. So thank you for joining us. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. At the bottom of your screen, there should be a gray bar with multiple application widgets. All the widgets are resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to get the most out of your desktop space. In order of appearance, let's go down the list of icons down there. There's a help button all the way on the left of the gray bar. That's your help widget. You'll find resources and information for common technical issues you may experience with the webinar. Next is the slides widget. That should already be open. You can expand your slide area or maximize it to full screen by clicking on the different arrows. The media player widget would be for controlling your audio, and that will be coming through the media player widget. But since we do have quite a few attendees today, attendees are muted. But we do encourage you to use the Q&A widget. And the Q&A widget is the speech bubble with the question mark there in the middle of the gray bar. We encourage you to submit questions at any time during the webinar. We will try to answer the questions during today's session, but if a fuller answer is needed or we run out of time, we can answer it later via email. Please do know that we do capture all questions. Next to the Q&A icon is a resource list icon. The resources list should already be open to your upper right. You can find additional materials related to planning and analytics there. We encourage you to download any resources or links that you may find useful. We've also included a link there to register for upcoming dates of the Looking Forward with Workday webinar series. We'd also like to note that a recording of today's webinar will be available in approximately 24 hours. It can be accessed using this same link that you used to join the session today. There's also one extra icon all the way on the right of the widget bar at the bottom of your screen. That's the speech bubble with the lines in it. That's to complete a brief 3-question survey at the end of the webinar that will help us bring you topics that you want to hear more about and improve future webinars. We really encourage you to take a minute toward the end of the session today to provide feedback. So that's it for the housekeeping items. We're going to move on to our safe harbor statement. There will be forward-looking statements in this webinar. So please do not rely on any forward-looking statements for any purchasing decisions. All forward-looking statements are subject to change without notice. I am Mark Thompson. I'm the functional architect for Workday Adaptive Planning, and I'll be hosting the webinar today along with a number of my colleagues and workmates. We'll be going over the highlights from Adaptive Planning's presence at Workday DevCon 2023. And we'll be doing that through a number of sections that will be having many presenters giving you just a taste of the great content that was available at DevCon this year, which just happened actually just a few weeks ago. So in today's environment, just as an overall view of how the world is changing, you need to strengthen your focus on planning. Many organizations are continuing to adjust to that new normal. Planning is becoming mission critical. So amid this increased uncertainty, companies are finding across the board, and particularly in FP&A and planning functions, they need to equip themselves with the right tools to tackle uncertainty and change. IDC says it pretty well here. Great planning is key to allowing an enterprise to thrive in uncertainty, course correct as necessary, and drive growth despite external factors. To help organizations succeed, planning must be dynamic, continuous, and connected across different business functions. And that's what today's session is all about, because that's what DevCon was about for us this year. We're delighted to have over 6,000 planning customers today. And as that's probably you in our audience today, thanks for letting us be a part of your journey. So let's get into it. Workday DevCon. That is Workday's destination event for everything that has to do with builders. As the name implies, this event originally started off as a conference for developers on Workday applications, including Workday Extend, focusing on Workday Extend, in fact. However, this year, we opened it up to the broader builder persona. The planning modeler, the planning expert in FP&A. We added a bunch of content to Workday DevCon to cover the use cases you're interested in. We featured a slew of breakout sessions, hands-on labs, brain dates, more, just for financial planners. So we're lucky today to have a few of those 4 adaptive planning product experts who headed up many of those marquee sessions at DevCon this year. They're going to take us through some of the highlights of the material they covered, answer any questions you might have as we go along. Also, keep in mind that most of our sessions from DevCon are still available on demand. So be sure to stay tuned towards the end of this webinar and see how you can access all of that content. It's live up there right now. So, Alice, why don't you kick us off with the first topic here at the highlights?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mark. Welcome, everyone. My name is Alice Coyne, and I'm a director here of product management focusing on financial planning. So I wanted to share with you just some highlights from the session that I gave on advanced reporting. And I'm sure reporting is key to all of your functions in planning. But let's start out with a poll. So I want to see how many of you have used our display as custom feature in the matrix reports. So just a simple yes or no will do. And there are 2 different features with the keyword display as. So this is not display as percent of account, rather display as custom. So seems like we're in the new here, which is great. So we put this feature out a while ago, and it seems to be pretty underutilized, but we went through a lot of different use cases that might apply to you that can be super valuable using this feature. So again, might be helpful to Mark's point to check out some of the live content later. So I'll just spend a few minutes going through some key, what's happening there? Going through the example of the use case. The picture. Are you seeing the picture?
Yeah.
Okay. So in this use case, what you can see on the image here is I want to see my accounts. I've got revenue and cost of sales, and I want to see a percent of total. Now we do have a display as percent of account feature within the matrix reports. However, when you do that, you pick a single denominator. So if I were to use that in this example, you would have revenue as a percent of total revenue, and you'd have cost of sales as a percent of total cost of revenue, which is not really what we're looking for. And really by leveraging the display as custom, you're able to, using some different features in our formula, such as using the power of this, create a formula such that you take revenue as a percent of total revenue and cost of sales as a percent of cost of sales, giving you the result you're seeing on the screen. There's a couple of different ways you can do that, and we walked through that in the session that was given. So you can use account attributes, you can use different types of formulas, looking at account code to really leverage that, and not just for accounts, but you can also use this in different ways for a roll-up of levels, etc. So really a lot of valuable use cases there, and something that might be pretty common to you. So just to give you a teaser of some of the other use cases that we played with. So we did do display as percent of total. We also did display as percent of account. We created a report with a trailing 3 and 6 month single time period. So just a roll up in a column of the last trailing 3 months, last trailing 6 months, and parameterize that, which was quite powerful, and leveraged a lot of key functionality. So some of that functionality might be familiar. It seems like display as custom might be new for some of you, but took advantage of these features that we have, such as reusable reports or virtual versions, and applied them in ways that maybe you haven't thought of or leveraged in your organization, but can really take take your reporting to the next level, saving you time in maintenance as you're building and running those reports. So a lot of use cases there, and I highly encourage you to check that out to learn.
Thank you, Alice. And I just want to emphasize here that the recorded content that we have from the sessions at DevCon includes quite a bit of live demoing as well in the product, opening the dialogue, showing you things. We don't have time for any demos in this presentation because we're going to be giving you so many slices of so many of the DevCon sessions that we couldn't squeeze in any of the actual live demo content here. But we're describing what it is you can do, and hopefully you can still get interesting nuggets out of this. And then, again, at the end, we'll show you how you can get all of the recorded content, including all of the demo content as well. So next up, we've got Andrew.
Great points, Mark and Alice. I was sad I wasn't able to see your session, Alice, but luckily I was able to go and watch it after. So hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Setness, and I'm a former Adaptive customer who enjoyed using the product so much I found a way to join the product management team. And so I focus on financial planning. So the first session we're going to discuss today was the advanced modeling and formulas. In this session, we went and discussed Adaptive's philosophy around formulas, which is that formulas are extremely powerful and that other users besides admins should be empowered to understand and leverage them. We dove into some examples we commonly see and tried to expose some functions that the users may never have seen before, but should start using. We discussed using dot notation, which allows you to write formulas that reference properties on an object. In this case, we reference versions and are checking the property to see if it is an actuals version or not. Another example is using the time fraction for partial period calculations, like partial headcount, which you can use to prorate, say, benefit or salary expenses. We also reviewed using a switch statement instead of long, complex if statements. So during the session, we did 2 demos where we went through different examples of formulas ranging from simple trailing averages to more advanced formulas using dot notation. This included writing formulas directly on the sheet using shared formulas and writing default formulas in account administration. We also discussed the benefits of using linked accounts and created a multi-link account to bring together salary expenses from 2 different sheets, one being used for planning existing worker salary and another being used to plan for to-be-hired worker salaries. Getting into some of the key tips we reviewed, an example of a complex-looking formula that once we broke out using white space and comments became much easier to understand. The most important lesson from the session is that adaptive formulas are powerful and probably offer more than you know, and that we should consider the people who may come after us to make sure that they understand what we did and provide lots of documentation. The next session we did was building explorable user-friendly models. In this session, we went and showed planners a number of helpful features. Since our goal as admins are to get planners excited about using Adaptive and to move away from using planning in Excel spreadsheets, we want to make sure that they're getting the full value of planning, and by leveraging some of these key features, we're able to bring them into the process and get their help. So most of this functionality are available by default, while others, such as transactions and process tracker, do involve some level of configuration to set up. During the session, we did 2 demos. The first went into process tracker and how to build out guided tasks for your end users. By including the relevant information directly in the task, the end user can focus on what they need to do without having to remember a specific flow or requirement. Some planners may only contribute to plans during certain times of the year, so as admins, we want to give them all the instructions they need to be successful. We often see customers use Process Tracker for their annual budgets and part of their monthly close process. Used it before, I would highly suggest using it for your next budget cycle. Our second demo was focusing on Sheets on Dashboards, which is one of my favorite features. I went through and demoed a multi-sheet sales rep capacity model that took into account quota, attainment, ramping schedule, and a hiring plan. By including some KPIs on the dashboard along with the sheets, I could immediately see the impact of changing an assumption on the total sales expectations. Also, using text on dashboards, we can give contextual advice to the end user and ensure they only see relevant sheets. And then let's help our end users by guiding them with the right places in the model with the right information they need to help contribute.
Hey, Andrew, a question here. Can I use Process Tracker and Sheets on dashboards together?
Yes, great question, Alice. Absolutely. So we see that for more things that are, say, recurring, like, say, a month-end close or a budget process, we would usually use Process Tracker. And for more ongoing planning needs, we tend to see more using Sheets on dashboards, but they can absolutely be combined to be able to have your process include some dashboards that have some sheets on them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Just a reminder, if you have questions, please do post them in the Q&A widget. We will answer them as we can.
Great. So third session we're going to go through is the advanced security concepts. During the session, we discussed the different ways admins can secure the system. Starting at the highest level, we can grant users access to an instance, or in the case of a multi-instance setup, a group of instances. For each of these users that are assigned to an instance, each one of the users will get a permission assignment. This determines what parts of the platform they can access, such as modeling or integration.
Are you able to hear me? All right. So as I was saying, we went through 2 demos covering access rules and associations. We went through a number of use cases, and the one that I wanted to highlight in particular was a financial analyst needing access to all salaries except for those of their own department, so that way they can't see their teammates or manager salaries.
Actually, could we back up a slide, Andrew? I think we lost the first slide as well. We're sorry, we had an audio problem. We think we fixed the audio now. So could we just back up to the slide where you were talking about that?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
So during this session, we discussed different ways an admin can secure the system. Starting off at the highest level, we can grant users access to an instance, or in the case of them having multiple instances, say for different use cases, we can assign an individual user an access to a group of instances. For each of these users, they are assigned a permission set or permission assignment. This determines what part of the platform they can access, like modeling or integration. We also have access controls on individual versions, allowing users to lock or even hide versions. Finally, we have access rules, which is the most granular level of security. With access rules, you can specify levels, accounts, and custom dimensions as being secured, and you can write rules granting users access to only the parts of the model that they need. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and pass it off to Juan.
Question, if we only secure data by levels, it looks like they're looking to do more detailed security in the future. What's the best way to start using access rules?
Yeah, with access rules, we generally suggest just starting with levels. And so even within levels, you can grant edit access to some levels, read access to others. After levels, usually we see customers secure accounts. With this, they can open up new use cases, like being able to give, say, a particular person access to an account across all levels. Like, let's say they're in charge of the travel budget for the whole company, or being able to have access to a set of operational metrics that we want all people to be able to see, but not necessarily drill into the details.
Awesome.
And I'll just mention that if you're not currently using access rules and you want to, that will require a call to support to have them enabled in your instance, because it does require you to do an immediate creation of the access rules at the time. If you are not, if you currently don't have it, that is.
Yes, that is correct.
New customers, I think, have access rules on by default. Yeah,
Correct.
absolutely.
Yes.
Great, thank you, Mark. So go ahead, pass it off to Juan.
Hi, my name is Juan Maldonado. I'm a principal performance analyst on the support team. I've been working on adaptive planning for a little over 10 years. I worked on implementations for the first 6 years and worked on performance over the last 4. Over the time, we've developed a series of patterns where a lot of times performance can be something that can be, there's different aspects of performance. Think more, first of all, thinking about where the time is being spent, looking at the screen and seeing what kind of performance issues can be potentially being ran into, whether if you're looking at a number stuck at 50%, or if you're looking at spinning that looks like it's aimlessly spinning toward no cause. And with that, a lot of times, depending on the type of performance issue, there could be various simple areas where you could drastically improve performance based on understanding the pattern that you may be running into. Over the course of this training, we talk about different areas such as how to optimize structure. So there's always a lot of areas where a structure may be fundamentally inefficient due to possibly a setting or a way a sheet is set up. So we talk about a lot of different ways of optimizing the structure. If you're running into some very long running formulas, so I talked about the scenario before of, let's say the model is stuck at 30% for 5 minutes or for 50 seconds, thinking about what are some patterns and formulas that could be causing various forms of slowness. And then once your model is in line, then we also talk about patterns as far as optimizing reports and integrations and ensuring that you're able to review the model from time to time and look for these patterns and ensure that you're receiving optimal performance of your model. Okay, pass it back to Mark.
Great. Thank you, Juan. So yes, I'm Mark Thompson. I'm our functional architect. And one of the sessions that I directed at DevCon was a sneak peek of the 23 R2 release. This was an exciting session. We had a lot of people really engaged. Everyone likes to see what they're going to get for Christmas. This is what's coming out later this year. In this excerpt, I'm just going to talk about 2 of the features in depth. So one of the features that we're shipping in the fall is a new model sheet data validation feature. This extends our current data validation feature that we have on model sheets. A couple of releases ago, we added the ability for you to make dimension columns required. There's a checkbox saying required on dimension columns. That will not let people save rows that have blank values in those dimension columns. With this new feature we're adding in the fall, we're adding the ability for you to have any sort of data validation rules you would like on model sheet data rows. It doesn't have to be just dimension columns. It can be any columns. It can be any combination of columns. You can have any sort of condition that you want to check. You can check whether a value in one column is greater than a value in another column. You can check whether, for instance, a personnel term date is, has to be after a higher date or something like that. Any sort of arbitrary condition can be checked. And you have control over whether that condition should cause merely a warning that the user would be warned about, but they would still be able to save the data, or should it actually prevent them from saving the data? You can have it be a warning or an error level. You can write any sort of rules. In particular, at the actual DevCon, we had someone ask, could I use it to make other columns other than dimension columns required? And the answer is absolutely. You can check whether a text column is blank or whether, well, any particular column is blank. And you can have that be an error or a warning, whichever you would like to see. That's coming out in the fall. Also coming out later this year is our first cut at the new personal what-if scenarios feature. This is an exciting feature that will be rolling out in stages. The first customers will be getting this towards the end of this year. Then the idea is it will become generally available for everyone in 2024 R1. Personal what-if scenarios are a new form of lightweight versions that any user has the capability to create on their own. And it's a personal little mini version you create yourself that can contain changes that you've made that do not get submitted into the underlying version until you choose to merge your scenario into the version. It allows everyone to have their own form of doing what-if comparison among different versions on their own. So for any given person, they can create a number of what-if scenarios. You can then go report on these scenarios in the reporting area just as if they were versions. You can do version comparison reports on them as if they were versions. You can edit data in them as if they were versions. Even cooler, you will be able to see the different changes that you've made in the scenario prior to merging it. So as in the what-if scenario, we will be highlighting those changes live in the what-if scenario. So as you change numbers, for example, in a what-if scenario, those cells will get highlighted with a sort of a yellow background color. So you can immediately see the changes you've made in that what-if scenario before you decide if you want to merge those changes into the underlying version. All of the security in the rest of the model is respected. So you're not able to change data in a what-if scenario that you don't have the rights to change in the base version, the normal version. Likewise, if an administrator locks the base version, you wouldn't be able to merge what-if scenario data into the base version because the base version has been locked. So we will respect all security, but this will greatly open up the ability for everyone in the system to try out different sets of values and try out different possible submissions that you might choose to save into an underlying version. And again, this is going to be rolling out towards the end of this year. Okay. Oops, I clicked on the wrong button. There we go. Okay, thank you. So on we go let me just give you an overview of all of the features that will be shipping in 2023 R2. And we talked about all of these in the DevCon session itself. You can see there's a lot. A given release has a lot of new features in it. I just picked a couple out for a detailed dive here. Naturally, we didn't demo these new features. They're not out yet, so it wasn't possible to demo. But we did have screenshots of the upcoming UI, and we talked about how they would work. Everything from the new features in the financial planning configuration manager through a number of performance improvements. Report scheduling, the first cut of that is coming out this year as well. There's a lot of interesting stuff we're shipping in the fall, and there's a lot of detail available in the DevCon session itself.
Yeah, and I'm seeing some great feedback, Mark, in the Q&A session. So yeah, the what-if scenarios, I'm glad people are looking forward to that. You'll notice in the far right column, those are coming in limited availability, so they won't be available right at the major release milestone in September, but they will be coming shortly thereafter. So definitely excited for those to be coming. I know there was also, I'll just plug, since I love reports, multi-select on matrix reports, which I know has been a big ask for a while. And I did see in the chat there was an ask around reports on dashboards. So that is something that we still are looking at in our roadmap, hopefully in the near term. What I did want to call out is there is the ability now to put links of reports on dashboards, and that came out in the March release this year. So I know these are great sessions, and so is the whole conference, just because a lot is coming all the time. And so it's helpful to sort of, if you're able to attend these types of meetings or the conference to get reminded of those details and be able to adopt them as you see fit in your planning process.
Great. A reminder, please post any questions you might have into the Q&A box in the On24 system here, and we will answer them as we are able.
Great, so it looks like there's a question here. How do I assign access rules for a single level assigned sheet? So for this, you can secure accounts with access rules. This means that you can, say, give access to an entire sheet. So let's say it's workforce. You can either give someone access to the entire sheet of workforce or not, as well as the individual accounts within that sheet as well. So let's say there's certain accounts you don't want them to see, say things maybe around some salary or stock calculation, you can still give them access to the sheet without access to all of the accounts on that sheet.
Right, and they can have access to some of the accounts on the sheet, like they could have access to whatever their hours and other sorts of calculations without necessarily having access to everything. Likewise, that's true across all accounts on other types of sheets, cube sheets, standard sheets, and so forth. So you can control down to the account level and, as Andrew mentioned earlier, to individual dimensional combinations inside access rules. So you can say things like a certain group of people are allowed to access the Eastern salary numbers, but not the Western salary numbers, or so forth and so on. I see we have a question here about dot notation.
Yeah.
We've not used dot notation in formulas before. Where can we see some examples?
So for that, I went and posted out a link to our documentation where we do have a number of examples. So we go kind of through each object and property that you're able to reference within dot notation, and then give some examples of each of those.
I'll say there's also examples of dot notation in the documentation itself. So you can go to our documentation, which is relatively rich. Inside the formulas area of documentation, when it gets into the dot notation area, there's a number of examples of things you can do with dot notation, as well as, of course, a complete catalog of the various dot notation functions and forms that you can use to write your own formulas.
And I'll just reiterate, and there's a question I'll call out, but to Mark's point, in the sessions at DevCon, there was quite a bit of demos in all those sessions. And so really a lot of hands-on learning. And there was an ask in the chat around, these sessions sound like they were great. Is it too late to sign up for this past DevCon to review the recordings?
Right. We just got another question. I'll address that DevCon question in just a moment. Regarding dot notation, will it be possible in the future to make dimension names used in the formula more dynamic? So for example, when the dimension name changes, the formula will change as well.
Yeah, so on that point, you're right. If you do reference the name there and you change the name, it would change the formula, which is why we generally suggest using the code. So you can have the dimension code, which is much less likely to change. So that way, even if you do in the future decide that you need to change the name of the dimension, the formula would still work and be valid.
Right, exactly. We have talked about extending the possibility, extending dot notation as well to allow you to essentially build dimensional elements for equivalence checking. That's not currently on our roadmap, but please do add a brainstorm in the Workday community if you'd like to see that added. We do read and respond to the Workday community brainstorms on a regular basis, and that is a major input we use in our prioritization exercise to decide what features we add in any given release. So please do go to Workday community in the brainstorms area and add planning brainstorms, or find existing brainstorms that are ones you'd be interested in and vote on them as well. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. This is the slide I've been teasing the entire time. how can I get to see these wonderful DevCon sessions that we've been talking about, that we have all these excerpts of here in this session? The answer is it is still available on demand. You can watch all of the content offered at DevCon 2023 on demand. Digital passes are still available for just $99. The entire on-demand content will be up there for another 5 months. It will be up there through November. You can visit the URLs here shown on your screen to sign up for that. I can say there's a lot of content there for a lot of configurable or developer-oriented Workday products. There's a lot of Extend content. There's a lot of Prism Analytics content, but in particular, there is a lot of planning-oriented content as well. There's 18 different sessions up there of recorded planning content, ranging from things about how you can integrate it with Workday Extend and use it to extend capabilities of other Workday products. There's ways that you can integrate it with Prism Analytics to have really cool workforce reporting capabilities, and an awful lot of just planning-centric, planning-only content. If the only Workday product you have is planning, there's a lot of content about that too. We had sessions on security, on reporting, on performance, on integrations, on good dashboard design tips and tricks. There is a lot of stuff up there for you. We highly recommend you drop in on the on-demand Workday DevCon. And of course, consider joining us next year at Workday DevCon, as we expect to expand our planning footprint at next year's DevCon as well. Of course, more detail about that next year. It's 11 months away at this point. There's no way to sign up for it yet. But what there is a way to sign up for, because it's coming up really quickly, is Workday Rising. Workday Rising is in September this year in San Francisco at Moscone Center. There will also be significant digital access to Workday Rising this year, and an awful lot of planning content has been added into the catalog for Workday Rising. More than 25 sessions, FP&A oriented, including demos and hands-on labs. There's going to be a lot of planning content at Workday Rising this year. In-person and digital registration opens shortly, and you can check out all the content in the catalog and sign up to join us. With that, let me also move to a poll. Are you already planning on attending Workday Rising this year? Just a quick question, yes, no, or you aren't sure yet. Because we'd love to see you there. Many of the same presenters who were at DevCon will be presenting at Workday Rising as well. And there will be a number of additional sessions focusing in particular on the value proposition, interesting use cases of adaptive planning, and how it helps you solve your business problems. Oh, I have to go to the next slide. Oops.
The results.
Oh no, I just had to, okay. So refresh it. Okay. It's like, there's no clicking, but no, I just didn't have it live. Okay, there we go. Not sure yet? Okay, well, that's great. In another week or so, registration will be open. Please do visit our Workday Rising website, and you should be able to browse the catalog and decide if you're going to be joining us. We would love to see you there.
I'll just say a couple of things while people are still entering questions in the chat. Mark mentioned community and adding your brainstorms. I'll also put in a plug for design partner groups. So I know we have quite a few design partner groups running right now. And we didn't go into the sneak peek of everything that's coming ahead, but people were talking about reports on dashboards. We're also looking at form-based data entry and other big ticket items. And so if you are interested, definitely go into community and see there are our product managers on our team that are working with customers in those areas to solicit feedback. So definitely check that out as well.
All right.
I think there was a question around, will this meeting recording be available? So that there's an email follow-up that will have the recording and links to resources such as the DevCon link. The $99 does include access to all the sessions. It's not per session, right?
Correct.
$90 gets you access to all the sessions.
Correct.
And that link to purchase that pass will come out, I think, in the next day. We'll send out that email.
Right. The recording of this session goes out tomorrow.
Yep.
Yes, exactly. All right. And with that, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Want to let everyone know about our upcoming sessions here at the Looking Forward with Workday webinar series. You can register for these using that widget in front of you, the resources widget. And the next one you'll notice is actually coming up next week. Again, thanks everyone for joining us today. Hope to see you next time.